It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum.
Hello, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company. Welcome everyone to the live stream. It's been a very long time since I've done a live stream. I have been super distracted with various things at the moment, and it's not good enough. I should be doing more live streams. It just makes sense, and I get good views on them usually. So let's do one today. I'm just going to have a general Q&A, talk about absolutely everything. Anything you want. We could even go off topic if you really want to do so, but ideally focus on the Boring Company. So before we start today's live stream, I will be revealing my alcoholic tipple for this wonderful evening is a nice bottle of cider, Bulmers. I'll be opening that now. Try not to spill it all over my pants. Get rid of that, and get rid of this as well. Okay then, let's get going. So, before we start looking at your questions, I thought I'd put myself a few questions of my own to kind of give you an inkling of what I'm thinking about at this moment in time. So, the main thing that I think about, and I pretty much think about every day, is what is the Boring Company doing well at the moment? What is the Boring Company planning to do that's going to excite me in the future? So what are you bullish about for the short to medium term when it comes to the Boring Company? So obviously, number one, I'm very excited about Prufrock. Prufrock is on my mind 24/7. I'm thinking about how they're going to make it better than Godot, how they're going to make it faster, how they're going to reduce costs when it comes to boring the tunnels, how they're going to reduce complexity to simplify the job, how they're going to prefabricate more elements of the actual construction process. That kind of thing is very, very important to me. As you know, my career spans almost 15 years, just under 15 years in the construction industry. The importance of cost and staying on program is absolutely very number one importance. If those two things are falling behind, you are in big trouble with your contracts manager. And trust me, your contracts manager will kick your butt if your project is behind program or it is over budget. And of course, quality is important, but on these kind of big civils jobs, pretty much it's fairly there's less elements to worry about. If you're building a multi-story building, you've got hundreds of different little bits and pieces you've got to worry about. On a big tunnel job like this, other than the stations and the tunnels are basically, copy and paste. So I'm very, very bullish about Prufrock. I'm extremely bullish about these two projects that are going to be starting very, very soon in Las Vegas. So we have the connection to Resorts World, which is hopefully going to start in the next 6 or 7 months. And then we have the project linking the Encore Wynn Casino, which I talked about in the previous video. That's very exciting. Obviously, I'm extremely excited about the Las Vegas project, the actual main kind of 30-mile project that's going to be hopefully approved either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Everyone who works in local government is very, very excited about that project. Extremely excited. They're almost more excited than me, which it blows my mind when I think about my kind of interactions with people that are approving projects in this country. For some reason in Las Vegas, they're super, super excited about infrastructure projects that are going to make it easier for people to live, work and enjoy, recreational activities in the city. It makes sense, but, that it is great to see. That kind of, brings a lot of excitement back to me when I see other people who are excited about this project, because there are a lot of people on the internet that want to hate on the Boring Company and Tesla, and to see other people who are not necessarily reading up about this all the time, excited about projects, that's good. Obviously, we've got the Ontario project as well in California. There's a possibility of other projects starting, like the one linking Washington and Baltimore, and maybe the Dugout Loop as well in LA. So all those things are very, very exciting to me. I think the Boring Company is run by a very, very charismatic leader, not just in Elon Musk, but Steve Davis as well. I think Steve Davis is doing a grand job. He's essentially running the company pretty much 95% of the time, so that's great. So I'm very, very bullish about the Boring Company. I think there's amazing things that are going to happen in the next sort of 2 to 3 years, and I could not be more excited. I really, really hope that we do see Prufrock on this next project, and it sort of blows my expectations out of the water. So we're looking at around 45 to 50 meters of progress per day per TBM. So what else is there? So I'm not going to come on here and claim I'm an expert in autonomous systems or how they work, how Tesla is moving forward with its full self-driving program, and Dojo, and all the other various things that Tesla is doing at the moment. But previously, when Elon Musk has spoken about full self-driving, I've always had it in my head that it's around 9 to 12, maybe sort of like 15 months away when he's been saying it. But recently, based on what has been happening, based on some of the videos that I've been watching, so Holmar's catalog is one video channel that I watch quite a lot. Is blowing my mind with what I see. When I see what that car is doing and the minimal amount of interjections that he has to do, it gives me the impression that this is very, very advanced. Yeah? And obviously, I want to experience it for myself before I make, a decision as to whether this is ready, for the limelight, as it were. But I think it's damn bloody close. And I think that what Omar has in his car is not the best. I think that what some of the engineers at Tesla are running, and potentially Elon Musk himself, what they're running is slightly ahead, and they're ready to roll it out. I think when the next update comes out and they roll out all these improvements, I think it's version 10 or version 9? When that comes out, it's a game changer. That is when suddenly the tide turns and people start to believe that level 4 is possible before Q1 starts. I honestly believe that. And I think that plays itself into the Boring Company as well, because I think that the Boring Company is going to start building lots of tunnels in Florida. I think these tunnels are not going to be for your mass transit system. I think they're going to be typical toll tunnels, as it were, and they're going to offer diversion routes for Tesla vehicles, potentially for other electric vehicles as well, I hope. And I think that one way to kind of get the money's worth out of this is if you have full self-driving working throughout the state, and then you can interconnect these various tunnels, and then you can start to offer additional services to people to say, hey, you know what, we've got these tunnels here, the speed limit is 100 miles per hour, we can get you to work 10 minutes faster, or we can get you to Jacksonville or some other place, we can get you around this congestion here much faster. So I think level 4 is coming. I'm going to leave the analysis of full self-driving and other things to people that focus more time on this, but I think that this plays very well into the hands of the Boring Company and Steve Davis in terms of how they can then take that technology, which is essentially freely available to the Boring Company, and then use it to expand their own business, because no other startup has that access to that kind of technology and software expertise and manufacturing capability as well from Tesla. So all in all, I'm very, very happy about that. I think we're going to start to see possibly level 4 rolling out, possibly the end of December, January, maybe February, March, something like that. I'm confident it will be in Q1 of next year. So I think before I look at that question, I'll just have a look and see what's going on in the chats. Hello to everyone. So we've got a few questions in there. So you know what? I'm going to answer one of these questions. Let's do that one. Okay, so if Boring Company produces Prufrocks like SpaceX builds rockets, then the next 2 years should be very interesting. Absolutely. I think that there is a gigafactory that's going to appear at some point in the very near future for the Boring Company. I think it will be in Texas, possibly very close to the gigafactory that they're building there. I think once that factory is 80-90% complete, they'll probably then actually start building a factory to manufacture TBMs. I think initially it'll be quite small, maybe less than 200,000 square feet, maybe 250,000 square feet. And then I think at that point, it'll then start to produce multiple TBMs every month. And then they'll extend that. Potentially, they could be producing maybe 2 to 3 TBMs per week. Really, if a TBM can be doing, 100, 150 meters per day, and you're producing, 2 to 3 every week, that soon adds up, and you could really just send a group of TBMs to a particular city and just leave them there for 10 years, and then you could have a huge hundreds of miles of a roadway underground built very, very quickly and at a very affordable price. Because the main benefit that Prufrock's going to offer to the Boring Company is the fact that they're going to be getting down to like $5.5 million per mile, and then possibly well below that. So at those kind of prices, you could build up a mass transit system that basically is bigger than the New York Underground, potentially, maybe even double that size, depending on the size of the city. So it's very exciting if they could do that. Absolutely, please like the video. If you can, please like and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. Also, join me on Discord, Twitter, and on Instagram, although I need to start posting on Instagram. Yeah, so I'll tell you what, we'll cover this one and then I'll do the question. So, full self-driving in a tunnel is so easy, you wouldn't believe it. There are no incremental weather conditions. The road's always dry, it's well marked. You're not going to worry about pedestrians. There's basically one speed limit, possibly maybe 2 speed limits at certain corners. It is a very, very simplified road. It's even because Teslas already work extremely well on motorways and dual carriageways and things like that. So putting a Tesla with full self-driving underground in a tunnel is even easier than working on a highway, in my opinion. It's fairly obvious, and it's very, very consistent what the vehicles are going to be seeing. They can have that all mapped out in advance, and there's going to be no surprises. So it should be perfect every time if Tesla know what they're doing, and they do. So how do we realistically eliminate congestion from every major city in the United States? So I've included this wonderful picture down here, which is in China. So this is like an 18-lane highway coming up to a toll booth, and as you can see, everyone has got stuck. So you can build as many lanes as you want, but if you have lots and lots and lots of people, just one person per car, and you've got lots of cars and they're all moving at the same time, inevitably, things like this are going to happen. I put this in as well because for some reason I quite like this company. I think they're called Skyway. I don't actually think they will succeed, but I just kind of like the engineering. It's an impressive engineering project. It's an impressive piece of problem solving that they've done, but I just don't think that this can compete with the Boring Company and robo-taxis. And I think that in the future, robo-taxis will absolutely, if we go forward in 10 years' time, robo-taxis are just going to destroy car ownership in the USA, in Europe, China, Australia, New Zealand, possibly in South America as well, Canada. But at some point, you're still going to be stuck with the same issues in that you've still got to stop at traffic lights. You've still got, certainly in this country anyway, they've reduced the speed limits on certain roads, and even though it's made it slightly safer, it is worsened the congestion problem. So you're still going to have all these problems. It's still going to take you 20, 25, 30 minutes to get home. So even though you're not driving, your time is still being wasted there. What we need is a mixture of solutions. So the Boring Company's tunnels obviously can rapidly increase the maximum speed of robo-taxis. If you build enough tunnels, you potentially could eliminate all congestion. However, it's going to take quite a lot of time to build up tunnels in every city, in every continent. So obviously other solutions are going to come along the way. So Existing railways obviously going to need to be modernised. They're going to be part of the solution. Things like trams, even buses. There's potentially going to be autonomous buses. Some other companies going to come in. It might be Waymo, it might be Cruise. It could be Common AI. They're going to come in at some point, and they're going to offer a system that picks up multiple passengers. Maybe it's a double-decker bus. Who knows? But there's going to be other options, and they all need to work together up until the point that the Boeing company can basically replace all roads. Because we don't know what governments are going to do. Governments might suddenly start replacing lots of roads with cycle lanes, which could then actually make using a robotaxi really inconvenient because the journey times have increased. Who knows? They could have massive toll charges on certain roads. We don't really know yet. But the most important thing to think of here is that the Boeing company can't build out mass transit systems in every single city at the same time. It's going to take many, many, many years, and we need to be prepared to let other solutions come in the interim to take over. So that's kind of my take on that, as it were. But anyone who owns a car in sort of 10 to 15 years is going to have a very, very good reason for it. Okay, so questions. Let's see who's in the chat, and then we can just go through the questions and see if there's anything else. Exactly. And they don't even need to go like 10 levels deep. Somewhere in the region of like 5 to 6 levels. If you've got multiple people using vehicles, that's going to be more than enough to work in a big city like Manchester or Liverpool or maybe even Miami. Just trying to think of some other cities, Jacksonville, Dallas, Houston. You don't need to go 20, 30 levels deep in those cities, as long as you've got lots and lots of tunnels going off in lots and lots of directions, and the high speed is good and the throughput is excellent. Yeah, I'm not sure full self-driving is complete, but it's certainly 99.8% of the way there. The question is, how do you, because it probably won't spend much time where it is now, because essentially now it's somewhere around sort of level 2, level 3. I mean, it doesn't really matter really what you classify it as, but once it gets up to kind of level 4 and it can operate on its own, that's when really the valuation of Tesla and the actual use of that piece of software suddenly becomes exponentially more valuable, and suddenly everyone's can see that buying it for 10 grand is an absolute steal. So the Caesars Casino, if I remember rightly, has quite an interesting design where they have they're almost like access shafts with staircases, and there's a parking bay for either 1 or 2 vehicles. I mean, that's quite unique, but I'm not sure how the other casinos are going to do it, whether it's going to be a ramp and then they have some kind of station at the surface like we see at Station 1 at the convention centre, or whether we're going to see actual like quite a deep sort of chamber with platforms on it, like at Station 2 at the convention centre. Who knows? We've not really seen. They're still really developing the plans, and I suspect that they might change quite considerably. But I think from my personal point of view, it certainly would be easier from a construction perspective if you could use porpoising, and then you could have the TBMs coming up at the surface, and then the vehicles obviously park up at the surface and then they go down the ramp. And you could do it in a way where you could bypass the stations, where you have a through tunnel that goes around the station, and you have another tunnel that goes up to the surface. So there's plenty of ways of doing it, and I'm sure we'll see some more designs over the next sort of 9 to 12 months. Other specialised materials, metals necessary for the face of the TBM. So the actual cutter discs and cutter blades, they use obviously kind of specialized alloys. I believe it's off the top of my head, carbon tungsten kind of steels for the actual cutter blades, but they have to be very precise about the amount of tungsten that they use in those cutter discs, because if they have too much, I think it makes it too brittle. So basically the metallurgy of the cutter disc has evolved a lot over the last 30 years. There's various designs for various size cutter discs, and it seems to me like they're moving more towards larger cutter discs, but I don't know if that is necessarily beneficial to the boring company, and they might stick to smaller cutter discs. But you've also got cutter blades as well. So in Las Vegas, obviously it's an EPB machine, so it's an earth pressure balance machine, so the actual strata is quite soft, so you're not having to grind down the rock, you're actually just having to pull it out and cut through it basically. So there are potential for using different types of metals and alloys in the cutter head, but that, I'm going to be frank and honest, that is a little bit beyond my level of expertise, and there are specialists that work in these kind of fields where they develop new alloys. Obviously SpaceX has developed its own stainless steel. Potentially, if they have a group of people who are doing that, they can potentially work with the boring company to develop some kind of new alloy. It doesn't matter if it's super expensive, because if you're having to replace those cutter discs less frequently, then it might bring in more money for you and cause you less problems with maintenance, because you're having to stop less. So that's kind of my thoughts on the process. How do I know what technology is in Prufrock? So it's pretty much all stipulated on the Boring Company website. Occasionally people reach out to me with tips, and obviously there's photographs as well, so I'm kind of like going in all three directions, as it were. So if the current projects fail, if the project at the convention centre fails, if the project going to win casinos is heavily delayed or ends up very, very over budget, or something crazy happens like the TBM gets stuck, that potentially could end the company. And I'm not really joking about that. That potentially could happen. However, based on my monitoring of the project at the convention centre, they basically beat all the targets, but then they got beaten by COVID because they had to essentially hold off on opening the project. So they technically finished the important bit, the construction, but actually running the tests and calibrating the vehicles is not possible when you have no passengers. So if they do well in this project, and they are going to do well on it, I predict, I'm 99% certain, then that will give them the momentum to go on to other projects. And obviously what they've already done has influenced the planners in Las Vegas to then have this very enthusiastic attitude towards the Boring Company's new project that goes down to the Strip and then goes to the airport there as well. I do like eVTOLs, and I might be talking about them in a future video, interestingly. So I am actually doing a calibration with someone. Where are we? And I might be talking about doing a bit of tunneling somewhere here. Maybe you know where it is. It's not that far away compared to some other places. But yeah. So I think VTOLs work well. I think that they have certain places where they work well and certain places where they don't work well. They don't work too well for journeys of less than like 8 miles. It needs to be over 8 miles, and it also needs to be probably less than 60, 70 miles. So there's a narrow band where they work. Obviously, they consume more energy than a train or maglev train or a boring company pod or even a robo-taxi. So I like them, but I don't think they will ever take more than 2 to 3% of the transportation market. But certain people will like them. Certain like high rollers, business executives will probably use VTOLs. Smash the like. Absolutely, my friend. Cheers. I should turn it around, shouldn't I? Cheers. I don't actually drink that often, but when I do drink, I do quite enjoy it. Yeah. I had a report that I kind of like flash read, and it was kind of talking about there was kind of massive benefits for them to moving from 17-inch to 18-inch, I believe, and that allowed them to make big improvements in terms of the boring rates of the machine. This was back sort of 20, 30 years ago, but as they've tried to make bigger and bigger discs, it's not really offered the percentage increases that you'd think. And I don't. It might look on the surface like adding bigger and bigger and bigger discs makes sense, but I don't actually. When it comes to the running of the machine, there's so many other factors that play into that it's just one of 20 things that you need to think about when you're building a tunnel boring machine and operating a tunnel boring machine. So it definitely helps to have good metallurgy in your discs and have big discs, but big discs. Certainly helps to have a big disc, but yes, it's not just the most important. It's like having a muscle car, and it's just about the cubic capacity of the engine. You've got a 7-litre engine, 8-litre engine, 9-litre engine. That's all well and good, but if you've got a turbocharger on there, then a 5-litre engine might be able to beat 80-litre engine. So it's swings and roundabouts. The Cybertruck is a little bit too big, in my opinion, for tunnels. It does fit, but it's a very, very tight fit. Very tight. It's possible they may build them on the Cybertruck platform. Obviously, they've just purchased this brand new press. I believe the press, is it £10,000 or £8,000? It means nothing to me, pounds. I work in kilograms, and in the UK we work in stones, which means nothing to anyone else in the world. What's a stone? A stone's like 6.6 kilograms. So it's... I think that they will use the Cybertruck underbody and the actual skateboard, and then they will drop something on top, and it'll be like an exoskeleton. It might not necessarily be the exoskeleton. I just think that'd be a good idea for keeping costs low. It just seems to be a very simple, boxy vehicle with, large doors on both sides and a top speed of 155 miles per hour. That's all it needs in a big battery. It's okay to be late, not to worry. We've got plenty of time for more questions. I think he will, yes, absolutely. I think it's coming. I think he might have come earlier than that, but I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, as it were, and say, hey, it's going to come here in October, and then it arrives in January. Because even if I get it, technically I'm right, somewhat right, but then people are still going to be like laughing at me. So I'd rather say it's arriving in Q1, and then it ends up coming just before Christmas. You can still get excellent throughput with current vehicles. Remember, a Model X can have the internal kind of seating arrangement changed. So a Model X could potentially hold 7 people, maybe 8 people. Even like a Model 3, you could potentially get 5 people in there if you could use the driver's seat as well. So if you can platoon the vehicles as well and run them fairly close together at high speeds, and I think that's very possible, and there's almost zero safety risks, very, 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 very low safety risks to doing that, especially with full self driving, then you're still going to get a very, very good throughput. So you might as well prove the system using those vehicles, and then later on you add your Tesla minibus, and overnight you've more than doubled the throughput of that system. 8,000, is it tons, is it? It's not pounds, it's tons. I don't know. 8,000 tons? No. 8,000 tons. Is that must be the weight of the actual press, though. 8,000 tons sounds a lot, though. That's insane. I'm not sure about that. I need to look at that. Yeah, it's about the bearing. You don't, until you like actually look at the constituent parts of a TBM, you don't realize how heavy that bearing is. Because remember, all the actual motors that drive the cutter disc are in that bearing, and that bearing is basically, literally, like figuratively, is bearing the weight of that entire cutter disc and all the pressures that are coming from the excavation face as well. So the actual bearing is very heavy. In some machines, it's well over, it's probably slightly under 100 tons, maybe over 100 tons. But it's not a huge thing, but it's very, very heavy, and it plays a very, very important role. The main bearing. Well, they want to obviously have lots and lots of TBMs, and they want to build lots and lots of tunnels. So the logical step is that they will mass produce TBMs in the same way that Henry Connect do. Henry Connect have a large production facility, but I wouldn't really call it a gigafactory, but it does produce very high quality machines for the tunneling industry, large numbers. But it's like any industry, if you're producing tractors, or you're producing caravans, or you're producing excavators, you're going to have some kind of production line, and I assume that is where the Boeing company is going to go. They're not just going to keep, I'd hope that they're not just going to keep producing them in some kind of backstreet warehouse somewhere, because for me, that is the past. That is not the future. Yeah, they totally drop, because it's unnecessary. I mean, it makes sense if you have very, very tight corners, but I think you don't need tight corners, and also you can just slow them. It adds complexity. The best part is no part, and that is of all the examples, that is the great example of something that you just don't need. You've got full self-driving. Just use the vehicles as they are. They just got to follow a line. Basically, they just got to follow the line. And you can bank the corners if you're going around, a tight bend, and that helps the vehicle achieve high speeds around those corners, or relatively high speeds. Yeah, I've seen them plaid. I still wouldn't buy a Model S or a Model X for me personally. Number one, because I'd rather invest that money in stocks and shares and crypto. And number two, because it's just so big. Where I used to work, we used to have a lot of car shows and general kind of sustainability conferences and things like that. And when I was doing the build, they always had the electric cars that come in there, and they always had the Model S. And I used to look at the cars and I used to think, Jesus Christ, this is big. And it is. It's just a big car. Very big car. And it's a beautiful car. I'd love to drive it for a few weeks, maybe hire one, but I would never own one. Will be a Model 3 steering wheel. Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. Maybe even the Model C, the compact. It will exert. Yes, it will exert a lot of pressure. The new version on the site, you're not seeing them. 125 tons. Yeah, so I wasn't too far off. It's big, and it's not a huge. That bearing is not like ginormous, like 8 meters across. It's it's smaller than you think it is, but it's 125 tons. If you know what I'm trying to say. If you've ever been in a TBM and you've ever looked one, if you've ever seen a picture of a TBM and you look at that thing, you think, Jesus, that's 100 and some tons for that thing. But it needs to be, because it plays. You could argue it is essentially, other than the cutter head, it is the most important part of the TBM in terms of if that fails and you're in a tunnel, you are in some big trouble. So it needs to be, it needs to work 100% of the time. It needs to be able to exert or take those forces, as it were. The smaller 6,000 tons climbing force, kilonewtons. Okay. Do you think it? Great question. I'd say that is the best question we've had all night, and there's been some good questions. So the problem with making a machine that achieves very high speeds is that you need to consistently achieve a process of continuous mining, and there is a lot of things that play into that to make that work. So obviously, you need to be able to assemble the segments at the same time that you are thrusting the machine forward with your thrust cylinders or hydraulic jacks. Yeah, so you need a machine that has the capability to do that, and it needs to work in all soil conditions. At the moment, the nearest thing that I've seen to that is Robin's machine, a double shield machine with a gripper shield. However, that would not work in Las Vegas because the soil conditions are not. It's not viable, and it's also, they're using an EPB machine in Las Vegas, earth pressure balance machine. So you need a system that can thrust forward and assemble the ring beam at the same time. Now that sounds reasonably easy, but actually to get those two things to work together is a little bit more difficult. On top of that, you then have to supply your machine constantly with prefabricated concrete tunnel lining. If you run short of that, then the machine just stops dead because you have nothing to thrust off. Now, a lot of people talk about solutions where you don't need to thrust off the lining, but I don't think those systems work in soft ground. So I think that you either need to push the machine forward as a whole, including the gantry, or you need to thrust off the lining. And I think even though that's the kind of existing approach, I still think that the lining approach, for me personally, is the best approach. On top of that, you then have to remove all your excavated material. A lot of that excavated material, on top of it being very, very heavy, it's constantly coming. So you've then got to send down your muck train and then bring it out, or you've got to have some kind of conveyor belt. Well, that conveyor belt does not move with the machine. You've got to continuously extend the conveyor belt. You've also got to extend the power going to the machine. So there's lots of different construction activities that are ongoing at the same time, and making all these little bits and pieces work together seamlessly when the machine's not necessarily going in a straight line either. Sometimes it might be going around the corner. Maybe there's an area of poor ground that you've had to go underneath or above. There's so many factors playing into this that to make a machine that is continuously mining, even 5 to 6 days a week, never mind 7 days a week, is tough. Now, I have my own opinions for how you do that, using hexagonal segments and using some kind of, what was the phrase that I used? You have some kind of secondary system where you can then switch back to trapezoidal segments, and it's kind of like an intermediate segment. But there's so many issues that need to be solved, and the tunneling industry at the moment is great at solving little incremental things with the machine. Make this more reliable, make this part last, an extra 4 weeks, and make this part require less maintenance. But then they're not really pushing forward the continuous mining thing as much as I would like them to do, and they're looking at how can we make this machine consume less electricity, and how can we make this machine last an extra few years, and they're not really thinking about the core principles of making a continuous mining machine. That's kind of, and I'm not saying that they're doing a bad job. I think Robin's doing a great job, and Herrick Connect are doing a fantastic job, but the focus is kind of making smaller incremental increases. And I know some people are going to shout at me now, but that's my thought on it. And these companies have been very, very successful. You can't criticize them. When your company's making money and is building all these incredible projects in difficult conditions, difficult financial and obviously physical conditions, you've got to give them credit. Anyway, so I've gone on a bit of a rant there, but it's difficult. I have ideas of how you can do it, but there are many, many ways of doing it, and it requires a lot of research. It requires a lot of testing, and what's power? Thank you. 60% diameter, yeah. So if, for example, you got a 10 meter, it'd be like 6 meter, wouldn't it, around? So, and it's still, I mean, that's, 10 meters is ginormous when you think about it. Theoretically, how many could they make in the next 5 years? If they built a purpose-built factory, potentially they could be building over 100 machines per year. Let's say it takes them 2 years to build probably less than that. Let's say it takes them 18 months. So, potentially, I mean, do they need 350 machines? Their aim should be to build at least 150, 200 machines. Maybe that's a bit too much, actually. Let's say 150 machines. Now, ultimately, some of those machines will get scrapped because as the technology progresses, those machines might be seen as obsolete. So then you might end up scrapping some of that machine, taking some of those parts and putting it into new machines. But I think 150 machines over the next 5 years, starting from today, is kind of a reasonable number to aim for. Supposed to build this, shift the missing. My thought on that is that they've had a go at it, and there's not as much pressure for them to really kind of move in a certain direction, in my opinion. If they don't create a better continuous mining machine, they're still going to make a lot of money. So if you are a chief executive or you're on the board at Heron Connect or another company, Robbins, then your focus should be on making the machines more efficient and last longer and require less maintenance and work on more jobs. That's how I think they're thinking, but maybe I've never worked for a tunneling company, so these are all assumptions, and I'm just basing it on things that I've read and articles that I've read, and but the tunneling industry has done incredible work in various areas, including metallurgy and making the machines safer for the operators. It's the new tunnel boring machine for HS2 in the UK has a special machine that helps them install the segments rather than having certain parts of it require operatives, and that's obviously again is a great improvement. But again, are they going to make another little improvement like that in 3 years' time, and then another one in 4 years' time? I think there might be a better way of doing it. Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I have, yeah. Oh, well, we know that, Richard. As you can see, I respond quite a lot to yourself, Richard, on YouTube, and I think that the questions that you pose to me are brain teasers, as they were, and I do appreciate them, and I very much appreciate your comments and all the help you've offered to me. And hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 years, I learn a bit more about TBMs and become a bit more experienced, because, as you know, that's I'm not really involved. Even when I worked in the water industry, I will finish on this one. Even when I worked in the water industry, I was not involved in the M&E side of the projects, so mechanical and electrical. They had a team of electrical, or they had one electrical engineer and then 2 mechanical engineers who had an office adjacent to me, and I would literally go in there and they would tell me things, and it would be straight over here. My job as a section engineer, or at the time prior to that, I was like a trainee engineer. That they've got to do their job. I do my job. Once I've built all the infrastructure, then they come in and they put in their various equipment, which hopefully they've had a good think about why they need to do it in certain things. And then if it all works, I get praise. But if they do their job and it doesn't work, then even though if I've done a good job, then I get criticised. So there you go. And that's the UK water industry for you. But when I worked for what was then MJ Gleeson, who worked for Thames Water, I never worked on a job that finished more than a week late, and I never worked on a job that finished more than £40,000 over budget, which I think is a good sign of how hard I worked, and the quality of the team that I worked with was exceptionally good. And there were a lot of graduates in there. It wasn't super experienced people. It was a lot of people who were essentially learning on the job. They come from other industries. So Elon is a dream. There's nothing worth that. Facts are facts, and power is absolute. So, materials too. Fair enough. There might be very, very good reasons why certain materials have not been used in a cut ahead. Like, for example, it costs, $1,000, $2,000 a ton. But it might make sense now to consider it. I don't know. Again, metallurgy is a complex area, well beyond my expertise. But there's been a lot of development in material science over the last 30 years. There are literally people going to universities in the UK studying material science, and they are very, very sought after. And it's not just for batteries, it's for various other things as well, and various industries, and going into the military as well. So if you are considering doing a degree, material science could be your path to a very, very nice salary. Oh, great. Someone mentioned Thunderfoot. Who thinks... Put in the comments a number 1 if you think that Thunderfoot is being disingenuous about his criticisms of all of Elon Musk's companies. Because I think he could have been very, very smart and criticised SpaceX and criticised the Boring Company and done a couple of Hyperloop videos, but he's really kind of gone off the deep end and just criticising like almost everything that Tesla does now, and in a way he's kind of lost his edge in a way, because he was very, very focused on criticising startups, these kind of companies that were on Indiegogo and they were on Kickstarter. And trust me, I've bought a lot of stuff on Kickstarter and have been burned at least twice. But then I've got some very, very good products, so I don't really care. But I think, so press number 1 if you think he's being a little bit, sinister about his criticism about Tesla. Press number 2 if you think he's being fair about his criticism of Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company. And has he done one on Neuralink as well? I think he did one on Neuralink, and that was... Or was that someone else? I think he might have done one on Neuralink, but if he's not done one, he's probably doing one right now. But anyway, so let's see what we've got. No one's pressed any buttons. Nice on negative perspective. Yeah, he hates Elon Musk. I mean, his analysis of... we're going off topic here, but why the hell not? Of SpaceX was bloody awful. Let's be frank here. It's really kind of playing with statistics, that. And it's not really fair. So he was comparing the Falcon Heavy to is it Space Shuttle? I'm not really a big rocket guy, but the shuttle, the reusable shuttle that NASA have, and it wasn't right. It wasn't right because everyone who's looked at that number he's trying to take the extreme costs of what it was for SpaceX at the beginning. And then he's trying to take the extreme, lowest costs that NASA achieved right at the end before they scrapped it because it was getting too old. And it's not a fair comparison. What he was doing was not fair. I mean, technically some of it was correct. He was using numbers that were technically, there to be analysed, but it wasn't fair. And it won't look good for him in the future because we've already had a Falcon. Is it a Falcon Heavy that has launched? 9. It's been launched 9 times now, and I believe he was saying it's maybe 4 or 5 is the maximum. So I just don't know why he would think that. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know why. I think he just gets very good views on those videos about Elon Musk. So if you're getting good views and you're getting good advertising revenue, and you know a lot of people are writing comments and he's got new subscribers. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, 111 exactly. Yeah. That's it. Okay, I'm going to finish on that one because I agree entirely. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Thank you, everyone who asked some good questions. All the questions were excellent today. Yeah, hopefully we'll do this again. I need to do this again. I think people enjoy it. I think that it attracts more people to the channel. It tests me. If people ask questions that I don't know, I then say I don't know the answer, and then I go away and find the answer. So in a way, this all helps me. So thank you all for joining me today. Really pleased that you've come to join me. If you've not done, please like and subscribe. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you would like to support the channel with a couple of dollars every month. That would be super helpful, and yeah, you would become an integral part of this channel and hopefully help me make better content and spread the good word of Elon Musk, Steve Davis, and the Boring Company. Okay, everyone, thank you, and I will see you on the next video. Take care. Have a lovely day. Thank you. And remember, don't be boring. See you later. See you later, Phil. Nice of you to join. Thank you. Goodbye.
This is Sparta!